Welcome to a special episode of DFS_PhD show. This is the Gambler Know Thyself series. I think this is now number 6. This is the Big Picture series. This is the second edition of Gambler Know Thyself. The first one was, I think, the second or third video of the series. You can go check the playlist afterwards. But this one is focusing entirely on a bunch of research from the Iowa Gambling Task and how you can use that to hone yourself as a gambler. Because, as much as there is decent research out there, we should be aware of it, and we should use it on ourselves in a reflective manner as best we can. Because, these guys are doing thousands and thousands of experiments on people and gamblers and stuff, and it's pretty interesting. So what is the Iowa Gambling Task? Well, glad you asked. It started, how long ago? 1994, so 30 years ago now. And it's a psychological task basically with 4 decks, and the decks have different expected values, different variances. Basically, some decks, there's your expected values are negative for 2 of them and positive for 2 of them, but the way you get there is different. One of them has, you lose more there's like a risk associated with one or the other of the decks. Anyway, I don't want to learn it that well because I still want to be able to take it and have a test of it someday on myself. So I'm just aware that something's up with the decks, right? So they are stacked, and the original experiment, it was so cool, was everybody had the little finger things at the time, I think is how you measured galvanic skin response. And people, as they would go to the wrong decks and the right decks, they would get, their bodies would respond to as they were going to the wrong decks, like with a don't do that, like a response. And it was pretty clear that they knew that they were having the skin response to the bad decks before they were having a conscious idea of what was going on with the bad decks. Like you and I, obviously there are things I do every day in contest selection and stuff that are positive expected value. But when you make an actual move in competition, it's not as clear that it's positive expected value. And that's kind of what's going on here, right? Like you need to figure out whether or not through repeated exposure to the task, the decks are positive or negative expected value. And over the year, and basically your body knows before you know. It was a very clear demonstration of gut. And there's been thousands of these studies now since, and there's been people who whine about it and who want it to be a clear thing, but this is social sciences, guys. And these are small n studies. You know how errors go with that, bigger errors. So obviously, who knows the specifics of how much of these effects are what. But some of these papers seem they back up some anecdotes from my own life. So I'm going to sprinkle in some anecdotes that I've found in the last day, with some research I found in the last day, with some anecdotes from the last year. So the first was in the winning mood. So this is basically people who were feeling positive in a positive mood state found the advantageous decks faster than people who are in a negative mood. So if you are feeling positive, you will do better on slates. And that's, it sounds like woo-woo nonsense, but it's not. It's number one, it definitely is true for my biggest wins. I already was feeling positive. I was already, the whole day before I won the $100,000, I was telling myself I deserved it. I've been working hard. I have a good model. It's a big day. It's going to be a big night, big spike day. I was doing all that positive stuff that honestly is a little uncomfortable for me. I'm not traditionally a very positive guy, but I see the data, and I know the data, from golfing and stuff. When I'm golfing, if I hit a bad shot and I get down on myself, it doesn't help anything. It's just going to make the next shot even worse if I'm in my head and stuff. But if I just go to the next shot and I'm okay, how far away is this? Try to reset, try to do the same thing every time, try to treat it like a new challenge, then it works out well, right? So that's the same thing I try to do with DFS. Every night I try not to take it too hard. Obviously, I'm not doing a crazy amount of my allocation every night. It's 1 to 2%. So if I lose it, I lose 1 to 2%. Don't care. And I'm still going to go into the next slate with a positive mood and a positive attitude because that's what I need. But it's not just a positive mood. You need to avoid stress. So, there were 2 different things. So in this one, there's not only, obviously, you want to avoid being, under the gun for your lineups or whatever. You want to, if you're making picks quickly, that's fine, but you don't want to feel stressed, like you're up against a limit, like you haven't gotten a chance to review the full field. So don't be stressed when you're making your lineups. Make sure you're in a nice, comfortable space, in a positive, winning mindset. There's a reason why I'm saying you're good enough, you're strong enough, and gosh darn it, somebody's got to win that money. Because that's a real important mindset for you to be in to win. It's not like all these guys right now who are winning contest sim based stuff. I think part of it that they don't understand is that they think they're going to win every night. Like that's really important. They're making these picks. They're there because it's still the way that you manipulate the contest sims. Like not any person is going to use those. You're still got to be top. Anyway, I think it's just but okay, not gonna get on too much of a tangent before I say the other thing from this study, which is that the importance of reflective thinking for good performance on the Iowa gambling task. So you need to make sure every night, not, even if it, most of these nights we lose, but we don't get hurt by it. We expect it to lose and we don't ignore it. We reflect on it. We see who the winners are. We see how it went. Like what was the good deck that night? Don't miss it. Don't miss what the good deck, don't miss who won. And so make sure you're doing some reflection because reflection makes good gamblers. Like literally in this task, it makes you better at the task. Excessive social media users demonstrate impaired decision making. Are you doing bad at your gambling? Well, maybe you need to pop a limit on Twitter, pop a limit on Instagram, whatever it is for you. So that's one thing. Basically, if you're curious about like, I wonder if this is affecting my ability as a DFS player, you should look up Iowa gambling task plus whatever it is you're thinking about. So I've identified some of these the last couple of days that are kind of interesting to me, but this is by no means comprehensive. There's thousands and thousands of these studies. I like these too. 91 people. So who cares about this? Yeah, I can't draw anything from 91 people, and like this is just this is nonsense. I don't know. Sorry. My apologies. I thought there was something interesting here, but that's crazy. Okay, following your gut. I'm always talking about that. Yeah, so this was, not 52 people. I can't get used to the social sciences for that. But this is like Berkeley, Toronto. These are big dudes. So, I guess it's expensive to get guys to play card games on their computers. I don't get that. They should have more people. But anyway, I'm trying to figure out. Oh, yeah. So this was about emotional intelligence. So there was some evidence that having more emotional intelligence helps you do better on the gambling task because it makes you more of a reflective thinker. People who are emotionally intelligent are always like thinking about, oh, I hope I didn't offend X the other day doing that thing. Like, is it bad that yesterday I had 2 monster blocks on the guy who is the captain of Sunday basketball? Maybe, like that's something that a guy who's emotionally intelligent, like these days, I'm a nice enough guy and I am emotionally intelligent enough that like anytime I make any contact with somebody playing recreational basketball, I'm very apologetic and say, hey, like obviously I'm not trying to hurt you. Sorry, we had that contact. I'll try to do better in the future, try to make amends. But you should be getting more emotionally intelligent. You should look into that. Like also if you like, I guess take the Iowa gambling task. I should have said that up front before you know what it was. But because it's a good test of whether or not you're a problem gambler. First and foremost, that's what it was. Because if you keep choosing a bad deck, if you know it's going to have positive honestly, like if you know the game is what we tell you it is, and you still play the decks that have negative expected value, it's bad in several ways. So I'll say, did I even leave up some pretty negative? Yes, I don't know if it's negative. Yeah, Parkinson's disease. So basically, there's been some pretty solid. They do a lot of fMRI and MRI imaging related to the gambling task, and people with prefrontal and like frontal lobe lesions do badly on the Iowa gambling task, and it seems like that's also what goes on in Parkinson's disease progression. So people think that can be a test of whether you maybe have early signs of Parkinson's disease. So yeah, amazing amount of research that's been done about the Iowa gambling task, and it's pretty cool that like in the process of our like trying to figure out how are we going to make the best lineups for ourselves, we're going to maybe as a byproduct have an early like testing system for Parkinson's disease. That's cool. And like obviously 2011 I didn't follow up with this to see how I think I did see a bunch of stuff actually. Here's how I do this, by the way. You go Scholar, Google Scholar, and you say Iowa gambling task Parkinson's. I want to see about Alzheimer's as well. Okay. Yeah, medication. There's a whole thing about that. It was like, I don't know what those people's angle is. Like, don't make them medicated. Like, we need an A and a B case to make sense for me to even look at your study. I didn't follow what was going on. Decision making in Parkinson's, analysis of studies. Some people are like very meta-analysis people are like, yeah, if you average all these studies together, they don't get any effect. And I'm like, yeah, that's different populations. So, okay, what's going on? This is the most confusing data set I've ever seen. It's like people who don't do a review, they just put a bunch of other, like, they put all the other people's data in a table. It's like, thanks, guys. I wanted to see Alzheimer's as well. Because I know there was a whole problem with actual, whoa, cool. So there was a problem. I don't know if you guys saw this, but plaques, Alzheimer's, fraud, Alzheimer's, fraud. So like, it's too bad for all of us. Allegations of fraud, yeah. So there's basically, if you had someone who in the last 10, 15 years was treated for Alzheimer's disease and they didn't get better, a large part of it seems to be coming from a bunch of fraud that happened with amyloid plaques. So you can double check this later, but I'm pretty sure that this is, yeah. Basically, the amyloid plaques, the early data all was faked, like pretty clearly, and like to the point where like it was caught by, I don't know if AI was it, but it was just very clear now that we can look at something and be like, all of the errors are identical and all of those graphs are different things. That's not possible. So, like it was that level of like copy and paste fraud of the time that's just, cartoonish now. So because somebody caught that and now it's like, wait, all that's bad. And so all of the treatments for the last 2 decades in Alzheimer's have been bad, but let's see if we can do better. So results reveal lower performances in the AD patients made more strategy changes. Take more. Interesting. Working memory and executive function. Yeah. I don't know if I see much there. It doesn't seem like there's a strong correlation for Alzheimer's. So, okay, I should have money for nothing. Atrophy correlates of gambling disease. Okay, all right. I'm gonna stop reading research on the air. You guys can do research on it as well. But basically, I love the Iowa gambling task stuff. It's a great way for us to get to know ourselves and to hone our process in terms of the external things, like the environmental things. Not, you got your process part that's on the computer, but like when I think about how did I win all that money that day, right? Like part of it was having my process on the computer down, having my whatever uniques, the things I talk about in the other videos down. But the other thing is, I remember where I was specifically when I set those lineups and clicked the button, build lineups and whatever, and copied and pasted them. I wasn't by my computer at home. We were on vacation in North Carolina, I think. I'm pretty sure I was outside of a carousel in North Carolina that weekend. And like, I remember talking with my brother about the Haywood Highsmith decision and like I was pretty confident in it. I was feeling good. I was telling myself all day I deserved it, like I was telling you guys now. And it happened. I mean, like obviously I've already had 2 $10,000 hits this year. So it's not like I was telling myself that out of the blue. I have confidence. I know my process is right for basketball. I can see it in the cumulative distribution stuff from the other videos as well. So there's some contests when I go into them, I just have that natural confidence. So to see that that's a real effect is it's a nice, it helps me remember to focus on that. Because some days, you leave yourself too little time or you're not listening to whatever it is that puts you in a good, relaxed state. You need to, as best you can. I know it's like during work, sometimes these lock times, but put yourself in a little bit of a nice mind state for like a couple of minutes as you're setting your lineups. And that way, in addition to, maybe that's something you do while you're building. Like you click build and then you like really try to get in there. Like pop into, maybe I'll try this today. Try some sort of like, not quite meditation, but like Just trying to get in a positive mind state. Listen to whatever that music is, that song that gets you feeling really confident and pumped up, and like focus to an extent. You want to block out, other things, but you also want to not be stressed, right? You need to be in the winning mood. You need to be unstressed. You need to not be checking social media at that time. Just do a superset of all the things when you look at the Iowa gambling task and your own behaviors, the things that seem like the data suggests would give you better decision making in a gambling task. So anyway, that's the point of this video. Thanks for listening. Remember, as you get to know yourself better, no matter what, you're good enough, you're strong enough, and gosh darn it, somebody's got to win that money for sure. Every night, it's going to be somebody. And hey, if more and more of you watch this video, it's more and more likely to be one of us. All right, see you guys next time.